Hey guys, it's Robin and welcome to another episode. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through my current draft and why I selected the players in each position as I did. So I've been doing a lot of research to try and find out who's essential players and why are they supposed to be in my team. In the beginning of the process of researching, my team looked a lot like most other people's team. The basic Trent, Bruno and Salah setup mixed in around with the likes of Rafinha on the side to fill in. But then I wanted to know why. Why would I want someone of that price range? If I dropped down to a different price range, would the combinations of the two players suit me better or not? So in this video, I'm going to discuss why I went for some big hitters and why I decided to rather skip the big hitter and spread my funds around more evenly. So in the goalkeeping position, initially I wanted to go for Daniel Bachmann and Ben Foster as his backup. But since then I've decided, due to Brighton's really good fixtures, I'm going to go for Robert Sanchez and still have Ben Foster as my backup on the 4 million goalkeeping position. And the first defender on my team sheet, Lewis Dunk, another Brighton defender and a defender from centre back that has an immense goal threat. Moving on to Fantasy Football Hub, we've got the fixture ticker tool here, and if you look at the defensive setup, ranging from game week 1 all the way to game week 9, defensively Brighton are ranked number 1 to have the best fixture run in defensively to start the season. And that is exactly why I went for the double up in Sanchez and Lewis Dunk. If you look at predicted points tool for game week 1 to 8, from goalkeepers lower than 5 million, Robert Sanchez comes out number 1. And even if we lift it up to above 5 million, Robert Sanchez does really well and is the second best predicted points getter from all goalkeepers, even beating out Melia from Leeds. Next up in defense is where the surprise might come for a few. No Trent, no Robertson. I went to spread the funds and I got Chilwell and Luke Shaw, and here is why. If we head into fantasy football, the point prediction, yes, Trent Alexander-Arnold is number 1 and Robertson is number 3 in the predicted points for the first 8 games. But if you look at the predicted points, Ben Chilwell and Robertson have identical records. So instead of having Andrew Robertson in my team for 7 million and then I'll be forced to have a 4.5 million Luke Ayling, who I'd rather have as a bench option, now I can move from Robertson to Chilwell, take that million and upgrade a 4.5 Ayling to a 5.5 Luke Shaw, who's predicted to have a really good run in. If you look at Luke Shaw's predicted points, 34 points over those 8 game weeks. And if you look at Luke Ayling, he's predicted 25 points, around there. So just dropping Andrew Robertson of 36 points predicted to Chilwell, which have an identical record predicted, you can increase the likes of Ayling to get to someone like Shaw. Now don't get me wrong, over the course of the season, I'm in no doubt in my mind that Trent and Robertson are going to be the 2 best scoring defenders in the league. But spreading the funds around away from the super high premiums to quality players like Ben Chilwell and Luke Shaw, who are nailed down in their team and have also really good attacking outlets, makes more sense to me, and having a more settled team instead of having to rely on more 4.5 million defenders. So I'm playing through at the back and now moving into midfield. First of all, it's my cheaper option. The 6 million to 6.5 million radius. Many people have Bowen, many people have Rafinha, but I've always been a big fan of this player and my pick is Ismail Sarr. He's a really top class player. He was brilliant in the Premier League when they got relegated. He was the key man in their promotion and I just feel like he's going to hit new heights next season. And Ismail Sarr is my go-to punt, as you'd say it. A cheaper option, but I feel like the potential for him is really high. And if you head over to Fantasy Football Hub, for midfielders with a maximum price of 6.5 million, just as I mentioned, the likes of Bowen and Rafinha and even Bendio, the new signing for Aston Villa, is right up there. But number 1, with very similar predicted points as the others, is Ismail Sarr. But something to take in note, a 0.5 cheaper than every one of the other ones. And their run in is quite handy. First 7 games, they have the 5th best attacking outlet fixtures. So Ismail Sarr is my go-to differential in my team that I feel can really make a difference. One of the main reasons why I don't have any of the big hitters of Trent or Andrew Robertson is so that I can have a really packed and premium midfield. And straight off the bat, I'm going to release the next 3. Sancho, De Bruyne and Salah. For most of the time, it's been Salah and Bruno. And I've been trying to fit in Mahrez or see who else I can get to maybe even Son. But having De Bruyne, especially for game week 2 against Norwich at home, and having Sancho, who's nailed down as a winger for Man United, is really, really big for me. I feel like towards the end of last season, Bruno's form slowly started to slump and he didn't have the greatest Euros. Salah, Mr. Consistent, is always going to bang a lot of goals. Kevin De Bruyne is probably one of the only Man City players that has the least rotation fears. And Sancho, the new big signing, will be straight into the team on an attacking role, and I feel like he can bank a lot of points for that 9.5 million value. Heading over to Fantasy Football Hub, if you look at all players in Fantasy Premier League and their predicted points for the first 8 game weeks, Mo Salah, Kevin De Bruyne and Sancho are 3 out of the top 5 players, and I have all 3 of those in my midfield. It still leaves me the possibility to move to Bruno Fernandes from De Bruyne, from Salah, or to move sideways to Mane. I still got the option to move from Sancho up to Son, because I still have the 0.5 in my bank that I'm going to leave there to make transfers. So I have a lot of opportunities to move sideways and drop down to other really, really high quality players. So I feel like these 3 set up, especially in the beginning of the season. Man United have a great running of fixtures. Salah, De Bruyne, consistent no matter who they play against. But the fixtures in game week 1 of Norwich and game week 2 for Man City's Norwich are games I'm really, really banking on as my captaincy options for both of those players to really, really shoot me high up and have that green arrow into the top million early on. I'm playing 3 forwards and I'm relying on them every single week. Callum Wilson, Ollie Watkins and Ivan Toney. 3 players that are very crucial for me. I'm not 100% sold on each one. I've got fears for different reasons on other players, but I'm really confident going into the season with all of them, except for Ivan Toney, because I'm not 100% sure what is his backup option. There's not a lot of strikers around that price range to be able to drop to or move sideways towards. If we move to Fantasy Football Hub, for strikers under the 8 million mark, Bamford and Calvert-Lewin come out on top, with Jimenez in 3rd position. So as you see, I'm not picking the guys up front here based solely on fantasy predicted points. Bamford and Calvert-Lewin, are they both going to have such a great start to the season this season around as they did last season? Possibly, but I'm not 100% sold on it. I rather want Ollie Watkins for those 3 fixtures against Watford, Newcastle and Brentford to start the season, and then have a possible look to switch over for game week 4 to Jimenez, whose fixtures then turn to have Watford, Brentford, Southampton, Newcastle and Villa as these next 5, as his fixtures really ease off. I don't like pinning in a transfer ahead of time, but that's a really good position where 2 strikers in the same price range have a switch of fixtures. If we look at the 7.5 million striker ranges, Antonio is a really good option, but the reason I stayed away from him is because I can't rely on his fitness and he isn't the main man. At the end of last season, the likes of Lingard was the star of the show. Antonio is not always the go-to guy. In Everton, Calvert-Lewin is the go-to guy, and in Newcastle, Callum Wilson is the go-to guy. Yes, he struggled with injuries every now and then, but I feel like he is someone that if he can stay fit, similar to Antonio, I feel like he will have a bigger goal output and he'll be the main man for Newcastle and they can rely on him even more. So at 7.5, I feel like he is a little bit less of a rotation risk and he's more nailed down. As for West Ham, are always in the news trying to buy a new striker, and Antonio always feels like someone they're trying to replace or trying to get help for instead of relying solely on him. And then the last striker, Ivan Toney. At 6.5 million, he could be a bargain steal. He could be the Patrick Bamford of last season or the Timu Pukki of the year before. Yes, Pukki's back into the league, so he's also an option at 6 million. But I feel like Ivan Toney's goal output from last season was astronomical, and I feel like you can't leave him out for that value. If he hits early season form, his price is going to shoot up and he might be out of your budget before you know it. So therefore, he's straight into my team. I've got to worry with him though, as the players around his price range aren't sold. Neil Mopay, I'm not banking on him at all. Wood is quite solid, but Burnley are a more defensive, pragmatic team, and therefore their strikers are never going to be the end of big goal scoring targets. Che Adams is a really good player, even though he underperforms on his expected results. But he's not the main guy, and Danny Ings will always get the limelight ahead of him, therefore he's always going to be playing second fiddle. He is an option to move to at 7 million, because I've got that 0.5 in the bank, but for now I'm going to stick with the safer, nailed down player, Ivan Toney in red hot form. And if you look at my team in general, There's a lot of ways and players for me to move sideways and up towards. I've got the 0.5 in the bank. So early on in the season, if I see Rafinha's doing really well, I can easily move Sarr up. If I see that Calvert-Lewin or Bamford have a really great start to the season, I can easily move Wilson or Watkins up to that. Same thing with Tony. Gives me a lot of flexibility. I've got a 5 million, 5.5 and a 6 million defender covering all the ranges. The only problem is I won't be able to get up to Andrew Robertson or Trent without making big changes to the setup of my team. But those are the consequences. You can't have everybody in your team. But I feel like my blend and my structure of my team is really good. There's a punt here or there that you have to take a risk on early on in the season. But having the big guns of Salah, De Bruyne and Sancho with a really solid defense of Dunk, Shaw and Chilwell, playing 3 promising strikers and Ismail Sarr is a really good team if you ask me. The bench is not much to talk about it. Ben Foster, Omar Bamidale from Norwich, Billy Gilmore, and the main player on my bench that might have to play sometimes is Ben White. At 4.5 million, he's the perfect value player to sit on your bench. Plays for Arsenal, nailed down in a big team. Arsenal had the 3rd best defensive record last season, so he's a nailed down centre back at a big club for 4.5 million. I feel like that's an ideal player to sit on your bench that you know that has real possibilities of high outputs every week if needed. But that is my current draft. Let me know what you would have done different or what you think of it, and what do you think of the idea of keeping that 0.5 million in the bank to be able to allow for easier transfers without having to take hits or making double transfers. But see you guys really soon. I'll have another team preview out from other players, and I'm going to get into making some of the best midfielders, defenders and forward videos really soon, as we are less than 2 weeks from Game Week 1's kickoff, where Brentford and Arsenal starts on Friday. So make sure not to forget to get working on your Game Week 1 team. See you guys soon.